is to create an attitude towards creation, towards invention. It's obvious that we won't be creating a Kinect sensor during these 2 days, right? But from what you've seen, students who have graduated from the SEED program, the alumni, a lot of them have actually been inspired by the activities that you do here, and through the support from Shambhaji and many other resources, they actually go and study more advanced topics related to robotics or petroleum or other related fields. But it all starts with an attitude. It all starts with an imagination, the belief that you can actually do something like that one day. All right? And it's very different from a lot of people that I meet, that when they see something like this, it's something you just buy. So you have to find money and get it. That's a different attitude. Right? I think what we're here, what we'll try to get you to have, is that kind of inventor spirit. Now, to get there, we can't just sit down and listen to someone saying how to do it. We just have to try it ourselves. But maybe we can try off with something that is a little bit more simpler and something that you might find in your daily life. So robotics is basically sensing and control. Okay? These are the two keywords, right? You have to sense something, and then you control something. And then you have what we call a program or logic that sits in the middle, right? That is the brain that tells you what to do when something happens. And that's the very basic idea of robotics. I'll start with the sensor. So, do you know how these appliances work? This is a lot simpler than the Kinect sensor, right? This is a refrigerator, right? This is a rice cooker, an air conditioner. So can you tell me how these devices work? For example, refrigerator. Does it use a sensor? What kind of sensor? Does it use a sensor? Can someone tell me? I mean, in the refrigerator, you can tell it how cold you want it to be, right? Right? You turn on, to number 5 or something. But how does it know? How does it know when it's cold enough? Have you noticed that is there something in there that's a sensor? Yes? What kind of sensor? Can you tell me? What kind of sensor? What does it measure? Temperature, right? So it measures temperature. So that's one important sensor that is in a refrigerator. So when you go back home next time, look for it. See if you can find it. Sometimes it's a little cable that comes out at the back. Sometimes it's built into like a little box that is inside. So look for it. Don't remove it though. If you take that out, you might have a big cube of ice inside. Okay, so that's one example of a sensor. So it knows what temperature it is inside the refrigerator, and then it has a little brain, right? So if you set it to number 5, maybe that's 10 degrees. So when it reaches 10 degrees, it stops the refrigerator, right? And it goes above 10 degrees, then it starts it again. That's the basic logic. Is there another type of sensor in a refrigerator? When you open the refrigerator, there's usually a light, right? So when you close the door, do you think the light goes off or does it stay on? It goes off? How do you know? Have you ever been inside a refrigerator when it's closed? Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, well, it goes off, right? It makes sense for it to go off. But how does it know when to go off? How does it know that the refrigerator door is closed? Switch? There's a button. Where? At the door. Somewhere. Well, next time you go home, look for that sensor. Okay? Open the door. Observe. See where it is. You'll find it. This one is not too hard. Okay? You can press it. You can play with it. And you'll see that light goes off. Okay? So that's it. That's a sensor. That's the basic idea. What about air conditioner? What kind of sensor do they use? Same thing? Yeah, same thing. Yeah, but it can be a little bit more advanced. But anyways, it's basically a temperature control system. How about a rice cooker? Do you use a rice cooker here? Yes, of course. Sometimes when I go to America, I say rice cooker, people go, huh? They don't use one there. They only eat potatoes and French fries. Only the Chinese do rice. Okay, how does a rice cooker work? So you put rice inside, you put water, close the lid, press a button, it cooks. And when the rice is properly cooked, it pops, right? The button pops. So how does it know when the rice is cooked? How does it know when to pop the button? There's a what sensor? Heat. So how does it know?
Sensor. Thermal sensor.
Do you know? This is something that I have only recently discovered. Yeah, it's an object that I use on a daily basis. But when someone asks me, oh, it's actually a kid younger than you guys. How does this work? And I go, well, it probably has a temperature sensor, but how does it know when it's cooked? Oh, good question. Let's go ask Wikipedia. Something like that. A little embarrassed, being a PhD in engineering, and not knowing how a rice cooker works. Anyway, so don't be embarrassed. I didn't know. So, do you know? It uses a temperature sensor for sure, but how does it know? What is it looking for in the temperature?
Even temperature.
A what temperature?
Even temperature.
Even temperature. So when it starts cooking, the temperature rises, and when it's even, then it cuts. Maybe. Maybe. Any other ideas? Sorry? When what?
Timer.
A timer. So some of us say there is a timer in there, right? So when you press, 10 minutes or 20 minutes after it pops. You think that's the case? Maybe. Maybe. Okay. But what if you put only a small amount of rice in there? Does it finish quicker than when you fill it up with rice? So how do they calculate the timer? Sorry? Weight. So it has a weigh in there. So it has a sensor that measures how heavy the rice is. This is getting complicated. Maybe. Well, it actually uses a temperature sensor. And the way it works is that when you put water inside and you boil it, and you might have learned this in class, that when you boil water, the temperature will go up until how many degrees? 100 degrees. Boiling point. Will it exceed 100? Why not? Because the water evaporates and it takes away the heat, right? So it regulates the temperature to stay around 100. Then what happens when the water goes away, when it's dry? So the rice burns, right? Right? But the temperature also rises because there's no more water to evaporate. So it goes beyond 100. And that's what the rice cooker looks for. Okay? So you're almost right. You boil, it stays at a 100, and then it cooks and cooks and cooks and cooks, and when the water goes away, which is when the rice is cooked, right, the temperature rises. And then the rice cooker cuts the power. So that's how it works. Okay? So a new knowledge about something so simple. Have you ever seen any other kinds of sensors in your daily life? When you go to school, when you go to shops, or whatever you do in your life, What are some other kinds of sensors that you see? Washing machine. What kind of sensor? What kind of sensor is in a washing machine? Timer. It's a timer. Yes, washing machine uses a timer. Anything else? There are so many sensors in your life, you know? What are some other kinds?
Light.
Light? What kind of light? What kind of light?
Candlelight.
What? A candlelight? A candlelight has a sensor. You should show me one day. Maybe, yes. Anything else? How about in this hotel?
Automatic doors.
Automatic doors in a store, maybe, right? So when you walk to the door, right, it opens it for you. So how does it know you're there? It uses a sensor, yes, thank you. But what kind of sensor? Heat sensor? Heat sensor? How does that work? What's a heat sensor? Well, you can see there's a little thingy, right, at the top of the door, right? So that's the sensor for sure, but how does it work? It's a motion sensor, yes, that's the name, but how does it actually work? Well, see? So there's many kinds of these sensors actually. There's some that detects heat, so our body has heat, right? So when we walk by, it detects heat and it opens. But the most common type uses radar. Radar. Same technology as what you have at the airport, you know, or you see in the movies that goes around like that. But this is a stationary radar. So the way a radar works is that it sends out a signal, and then if there's an object in front, that signal bounces back, and the sensor picks that signal up. So when there's nobody, it sends out a signal, and not much comes back. But when someone's there, right, it detects that because a lot bounces back. So that's basically how an automatic door sensor works. Okay. Any other kinds? Any other sensors that you've seen?
GPS.
Sorry? Oven. Oven. Okay, so you choose the heat, you choose the time. So that is basically a timer, right? Okay. Anything else?
Hand dryer.
A hair dryer. Hand dryer. Oh, okay. So when you go, it turns on. So how does that know? How does it know that your hand is there? Or the same thing with the sink, right? The water that you wash your hands in some fancy places, right? And the water comes out. So how does it know? Radar. Radar. Similar, right? It actually uses infrared. What's infrared? It's a kind of light, right, that you don't see with your eyes. The concept is very much similar to the automatic door. So it sends out infrared, and then it measures how much comes back. But it's better than radar because it's cheaper. Because these sensors, you put your hands very close to the sensor, right? It doesn't have to detect long distances. So infrared is a lot cheaper than radar. So that's why they use them there. You can actually see there's a little black shiny thing there that transmits infrared. You can actually use your cell phone. If you use the camera on your cell phone and you look at the sensor of these things, you will actually see a light coming out. Because our naked eye, we do not see infrared, but our cameras do. Right? So that's a good way of detecting infrared light. Anything else? One more. A smoke detector. Smoke detector. Smoke detector.
Up there.
Where?
There.
Oh, that's a speaker.
Where?
Where?
At the light.
That's a sprinkler. That's where water comes out. Where's the smoke detector?
Against none.
But you can feel it.
Well, I guess there's one somewhere. Well, anyways, it's those things that you see, right, on the ceiling. So it detects smoke, So that's a chemical sensor, right? That's a little bit more advanced. Right? So it measures how much electricity flows through air. And when there's smoke there, it changes the property. And that's how they detect whether there's smoke or not. Okay, the point that I'm trying to get at right now is not really teaching you how these sensors work. But I'm just trying to tell you that a lot of times we live in a world with many black boxes, right? So we just use them, right? We drive a car, we drive a motorcycle without really knowing how they work, which is fine, you know, for many times. But I think there's a lot of opportunity when you start to ask these questions, you know, like, how does this work? How does that work? You know, when you do that, you create a special kind of attitude, right? You develop a special kind of thinking that is quite different from most people today. And it's the kind of thing that I'd like you to try to have, right, after we finish this workshop. So when people ask me, when I come to a workshop like this, how do I know if it's successful? Do I look at the cool projects that you'll be doing? Not really. I try to see whether or not when you finish your work and go back to your life, you would see things with a different mindset, right? You would look at the world differently because you have a new idea, because you learned a new concept. In this case, it's about sensors and controls and robots. Right? The next time you walk to a supermarket and it opens, right, you can say to your friends, oh, that's radar. And your friends go, what's radar? Oh, come on, radar is, you know, and you go on and do stuff, you know? So when you want to build something, right, you have a different perspective because you know how things work. You are equipped with a new way of thinking. So that's really what I want to see happen here, right? So you're not going to be just consumers of whatever comes to you as a black box, but you're going to be interested in, not all of them, but a number of them, you know, just to see what's inside the black box. Okay, so it's unboxing the black box. That's the main purpose for me. So the GogoBoard looks like that, right? And you basically connect sensors to it, and then it controls something. It could be a motor, it could be a light, and that's basically the idea. And you learn how to write a computer program that runs on the GogoBoard. So let me show you a demo.
Macam orang dapat.